Welcome to Intercare's first virtual AGM, which is being streamed live from offices and spare bedrooms around the world. As you will see, Anita has just popped a message on the group chat to communicate with you all. My name is Diane Hardy, and I am the General Manager of Intercare, and I will be your host for today. Our AGM is reporting on the financial activities of Intercare during the period 1st of September 2019 to 31st of August 2020. I am delighted to welcome our patron, Margaret Greif, MBE, to this event. There are too many of you to mention by name, but we have 59 participants joining us from all over the world, consisting of pharmaceutical donors, financial donors, and many supporters from grant-making trusts, volunteers, trustees, and employees, as well as some of our partners from Africa. We have 19 apologies for absence today. Our panelists include our chairman, Alan Mellor, to give you a summary of the year, our trust fundraiser, Phil Riley, who is giving a brief presentation of the accounts. We then move on to the formal business of the meeting, where members will be asked to vote through an online poll. I am delighted to introduce our guest speakers today, Louise Hart, Director of Programmes for International Health Partners, Francis Vuma, Hospital Administrator of St. Peter's Hospital, Likoma, Ireland, and Dr. Patrick Turay, Medical Director of Holy Spirit Hospital in Makeni, Sierra Leone. Without further ado, I introduce to you the Chair of Intercare, Alan Mellor, to begin with matters arising from the AGM in 2019.
Thank you, Diane, and hello, everybody. There are a couple of things emerging from last year's minutes, and two matters arising. The first one was that Richard Bruciani recommended that volunteers' donated hours be included in the accounts as income. In fact, we used to do this in the past. We always included the hours in the annual review, and we omitted them last year for some reason. It's not appropriate to do them this year because it's such an unusual year. However, we will be reinstating the practice of including the hours as income next year in our annual review. The second one was Mary Kelly asked about antibiotic resistance and suggested we provide guidance for patients to ensure that they complete their courses. In fact, we've now started a project, it's in process now, and this project will provide new usage guidance on medicines, and the plan will be to introduce this later this year. So that's the matter of matters arising. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of minutes for last year. And I would like, please, a proposer to accept the minutes for the year ending August 2019. Thank you very much. That's been proposed by Werner Weber. And now I'd like somebody please to second the adoption of those minutes, if you would. Thank you. Hazel Fish will second the minutes. So the minutes from last year's AGM are now approved, proposed and seconded, their adoption. So the next thing is my summary of last year. Well, it was a pretty unusual year. To express it modestly, we faced unprecedented challenges in common with so many people. The value of what we sent out to Africa actually went down by about 19% to around £553,000. But that, in fact, was a very good performance, a highly creditable performance. The warehouse was closed from March to July, and in effect, there was a ban on healthcare goods exports for many months of the year. So we were very pleased with what we were able to get out in the end. On the positive side, we sent a container to Malawi during the year valued at £127,000. That followed our previous success in sending a container for the first time in the previous year. And this is very important to the way Intercare is developing, and you'll hear a bit more about that later on. Our income at £212,000 was only 9% down on last year. And again, that was a great performance under very trying circumstances. Our costs were down, in spite of the income being down, our costs were down, especially transport. And we did make a gain because under the coronavirus job retention scheme, where we were able to furlough employees, we kept our staff costs down. So despite that 9% reduction to £212,000 in income, our surplus came in at £39,000 and our reserves improved to £153,000. Now, I'd remind you that we have a hypothetical wind-up costs. In the unlikely event that Intercare were ever to cease operation, it would probably cost us around £70,000 to clear the decks, as it were. So we're very, very well covered. We're currently financially very strong. But, and it's a big but, current conditions, to say the least, are unpredictable. We don't know whether donors will continue to be as generous as they have been. We certainly hope so, but we're not sure. We can't be sure. And we probably will face higher air transport costs. That's just the way of the world at the moment, I'm afraid. But we've made a strong start to the year beginning September the 1st, 2020. We have a growth plan for this year, a very strong growth plan, which is perhaps unusual for organisations, but we will be pursuing growth. And we'll use some of those reserves to boost our volumes and send more material out to Africa this year. So the need for financial contributions as we run down those reserves will be as great as ever. On the staff side, support from our staff will, as always, be vital. Claudia Coxton, Anita Fletcher, Bill Johnson have all showed immense loyalty to Intercare over the last year. And above all, they've showed tremendous flexibility as we've switched between full-time working, part-time working, furloughed working. And they've been tremendously flexible. And I'd like to thank them for that. Phil Riley, our grant fundraiser, we took the conscious decision that we would keep Phil as our one full-time salaried employee through this difficult period. And I think that decision was vindicated by the fact that Phil, through his hard work and talent, brought in £126,000 for the year. And Diane, as always, led the team with her usual dedication and successfully picked her way through the particular minefields of the year. The trustees are a stable and hard-working body, and I'd like to give special thanks to Catherine Garnett, to Jean Widdowson, and to Carol Austin, who maintained our vital admin and communication functions when the staff were on furlough. They kept a sort of skeleton going so that we didn't lose contact with the outside world, and I thank them for that. Our volunteers, as always, now numbering about 45, were marvellous. Their loyalty has never been in question, but this year they've had to show unusual patience because they've not always been able to get into our premises because we've been locked down for long periods, but they've been tremendously patient, and we thank them for that. So what of the current year? We see big increases. as I've said. We're going to send 2 containers this year. And the main merit of containers to Intercare, of course, is that they reduce the per kilo costs of our materials. And we'll also do more activity with our partner Action Media, who operate in Tanzania and Malawi. Action Media is a non-profit making European NGO, and we purchase medicines through them. They handle the logistics in country, and that avoids import restrictions and bureaucracy, which can be such a problem for us. And above all, we purchase at very, very competitive prices from them, which means that as they appear on our numbers, they're very high values on our output values. So buying from Action Media is a really good idea. So in summary, Intercare is in great shape, both in financial terms and in the morale of everybody involved with it. We are assuming a general return to normality as the year progresses. I think we have to assume that. We can't take it for granted, but we're making that assumption. So we're confident that this year will be a good year with increased levels of supply to our deserving African partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for giving a summary of the year. We now move on to presenting the accounts for the financial year, and I'd like to welcome Phil Riley, our Trust Fundraiser. We have invited questions prior to this event, and you have all been sent details of the annual review and some of you the accounts. If you do have any questions, please can you pop them into the chat function, and we will do our best to answer them. Otherwise, we will contact you after the event and answer them that way through email. Over to you now, Phil. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Phil Riley. I'm the Trust and Grants Fundraiser for Intercare. And let me share my screen. This is a short presentation on income and output in the year 2019-20. So starting with financial income, also known as cash income. Overall, we've kept things tight again, as in the previous year, 2018-19, by following the fundraising strategy, responding to restrictions imposed due to the pandemic, by following government guidelines during the lockdowns, and also having an ongoing conservative approach to shipments, with a continued focus on the quality of aid that we've sent. Financial income was 211,861, which was down by 20,415 on the previous year, which, as Alan mentioned, is just under 10%. Cash flow remained consistent throughout the year, yet total income was unavoidably impacted by the pandemic. This was mostly from cancelled fundraising events. So moving on to reserves, there were £153,034. These were up again. This year they were increased by £39,394. As such, the reserves are significantly higher than our minimum level, now revised to £70,000, as previously mentioned. The current balance is predominantly the result of lower transportation costs during the 4 months of the first lockdown in the pandemic, and also from ongoing careful cost management overall. Now at a very healthy total level, £153,034, £141,760 of this is unrestricted or free reserves, up from £113,640 in our previous year. On a special note here, the Intercare do intend to increase output in the next financial year to catch up. So a clear decrease in this level is anticipated by the end of this financial year. Just moving on to trust income, which is, as previously mentioned, I look at and try to take care of the best I can. This year, the fundraising from trusts was down by £16,620 from last year's £141,748 to this year's £125,128. In terms of attracting new trusts during those 12 months, we secured funds from 5 new trusts and foundations, and were able to revive giving from 3 previously donating trusts, ranging from as far back as 15 years to as recent as 3 years in the past. So while the bottom line from trust fundraising is down, the income from a strong portfolio of supporting trusts is in fact more healthy than ever before. This is certainly true when compared to the past decade. So essentially what I'm saying is success in developing the portfolio is in line with the strategy for trust income. So a note on general donations, we're down by £1,824 from £70,728 to this year's £68,904. Looking at output, total output medical aid value, and this is the way that we value, we put a value on the aid that we send into care. The output value was 5,500 and the total value was £553,377, which is down by 19%. This downward trend reflects both the effects of the financial strategy decision of purposely limiting shipments, thus reducing total annual shipping costs, coupled with the impact of the pandemic, and can also be seen by the following output-related statistics. So we see consignments down 36%, boxes down 21%, weight down 18%. Overall, and to summarise, all output this year has suffered a decrease around the 20% mark. So a bit more positive news. We're looking at some output related statistics. The cost of sending medical aid, we spent £34,021, which was down from 11,401 from last year's total of 45,422. We achieved this by using the container. For example, sending the cost of sending 4,000, well, almost 5,000 kilograms, in fact, by parcel post at £8 per kilo would be around £40,000. We also achieved this reduction by the previously mentioned decrease in output due to the pandemic. Also looking at purchasing medicines, this year we spent £6,313, which was down by £7,270, which is a 53.5% decrease from last year's spend of £13,583. And this is the result of the decrease in activity during the form of closure in 2020 due to the pandemic. So first of all, let me just send a little bit of apologies because the last bit of speech was related to the slide that you currently see. I missed my slide. Apologies for that. There's the summary. Moving on to cost of value comparison. So I wanted to point this out here in terms of purchased medicines. Now this doesn't relate to donated medicines or to healthcare goods. So I previously mentioned a cost of £6,313, and when you compare that to the value of the medical aid that we actually sent was £161,834. You see it's a remarkable cost to value ratio of 1 to 25.6. Excuse me. Now, sometimes I'm speaking with trusts and foundations, occasionally there's a concern about, why do Intercare purchase medicines? Do Intercare purchase medicines? Well, as you can see from here, sometimes we do, but the medicines that we sent are predominantly donated and with an outstanding value sent to the cost spent. So overall, we are delivering a very high value service. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Phil. Apologies, technology is not my speciality. So we move on to questions about the financial presentation. So far, there aren't any. So at this point, rather than, unless somebody's got one urgently now, basically, I think it's probably time to move on to the formal business of the meeting. And I welcome our chairman, Alan Miller, again. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you, Diane. There are a number of resolutions under the formal business, and I'll come onto those in a second. But I'd just like to talk for 2 minutes, please, on one of our trustees who's not restanding, and that's Anthony Herbert. Anthony's stepping down as a trustee because essentially he's got some big demands on his time now. He's very much involved in local fundraising activity. Anthony joined Intercare in late 2011, and he's been involved for 20 years plus beyond that as a donor via his charitable family trust. And his charitable family trust still donates to us, and we're very grateful for that. Another claim to fame of Anthony's is that he's attended every golf day since 2009, and I've seen him more than once or twice on the winner's podium. He's a past winner there. He's attended many fundraising events, and he's organised his own Africa Days for Intercare. Recently, via his contacts, he introduced us to the 10 by 10 team in London, which gave Intercare an opportunity to pitch at business philanthropists in London, and we were one of only 3 organisations selected to do so. We're very grateful for that. We'll miss Anthony. We thank him for his contribution over the years, and we wish him all the very best for future success in his fundraising activities. Thank you. Now, on the formal business of Intercare now, we have a number of resolutions. The first one here, no, let me say before I get into the resolutions, I'd just like to say 1 or 2 things. First of all, only members can vote. Second, please vote at this stage on each resolution, and you'll be able to scroll down on your screen. You've probably only see one at the moment, but if you scroll down at the appropriate time, further resolutions will come up. You submit your votes, not on each individual one at the time, but at the end. You'll see a submit button right at the end. So you vote on each one as it goes through and then submit them all at the end. There are some proxies to be added, which I'll tell you about at the first. So the first one is to receive the financial statements of the organisation. It's a straightforward majority. Please say for or against. I'm not sure what we have there. Oh, yes, please cast votes now on that screen. Perhaps Anita will let me know when I can move on to the next resolution. Thank you. The second resolution is to reappoint Evolve accountants and business advisors as auditors until the conclusion of next year's AGM. So it's a vote to reappoint Evolve as auditors. And the third one, I'm assuming that everything's going through okay. The third one is that 2 directors are retiring and offering themselves for reappointment. And there's a vote in each case for Catherine Garnett and David Bohr. And if you could vote on that one, please, as well. Anita, perhaps you could let me know when the voting's finished. Yeah, I can give some results now. On the first resolution, receiving the accounts, there's 100% for with 14 and 0 against. The second resolution, reappointing Resolve as our auditors, was 14 for, 0 against, 100%. The third one, similarly, reappointed Catherine Garnett as the director. That's 100%, 14 votes. And similarly, David Bohr, 100%, 14 votes. So all those resolutions have now been carried. Thank you very much indeed. And I guess I now pass back to Diane for the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, Alan. Now, that concludes the formal business of the meeting. I have actually closed the poll, but if you can still see the poll on your screen, please do close it in the top right-hand corner with a little X. Now we move on, the formal business is finished. We now move on to the speakers, which I am delighted to welcome today, Louise Hart, who is Director of Programmes from International Health Partners. And Louise is here today to tell us a little bit about what being a partner of Intercare means to them. And we have a slideshow, which I'm just setting up. And if you just bear with me, I will put on Louise's slides. Over to you, Louise.
Thanks, Diane, and good morning, everyone. As Diane said, I'm Louise, and I'm the Director of Programmes for International Health Partners, IHP. Diane, if you could go on to the next slide, please. IHP is a global health charity based in the UK that coordinates the safe and responsible donation of long-dated medical product from the healthcare industry to those who would otherwise have no access in some of the world's most challenging places. IHP was founded in direct response to the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami disaster. So from a simple idea 16 years ago, which was to match donated health supplies with needs in resource poor settings, we've since delivered millions of courses of treatments to over 100 countries. Next slide, please. Today, we work with a wide range of partners around the world to support long-term healthcare programmes, respond rapidly to humanitarian disasters and equip healthcare professionals providing services in places of need. We're the largest coordinator of donated medical product in Europe with a wide network of healthcare industry partners. Next slide, please. So like Intercare, we hold a WDA license and we're regulated by the MHRA. We work with the World Health Organization, the Partnership for Quality Medical Donations and others to contribute to global best practice in this space. Our unique partnership model enables us to draw on the expertise and generosity of partners in healthcare, logistics and humanitarian aid. Next slide, please. Some of our partners specialise in disaster response. So where we work changes a little bit each year, but the majority of our work is in Africa, the Middle East and Latin America. 2020 was our busiest year to date because of the extreme medical needs created by the global pandemic, which has really strained the healthcare system of every country in which our partners work. So we actually ended up quadrupling our activity from the year before, sending 5.7 million treatments to support programs in 34 countries. Next slide, please. So in terms of our collaboration with Intercare, although we also had some historical collaboration, the partnership between IHP and Intercare really took off when we became formal partners in August 2017. Since then, we've worked together on identifying and equipping medical needs across Intercare's programmes. So using the needs list that Intercare share with us, we match those with donated product and send that through as offers. And based upon what Intercare accept, we then build that into shipments, which are sent to the warehouse in Leicester, at which point Diane and the team arrange onward distribution to the programmes. Slide, please. Since 2017, IHP have sent Intercare 11 shipments of medical aid, which included a wide range of primary healthcare medicines of products such as antibiotics, painkillers, anti-inflammatories, topical creams, along with a small number of medical supplies, such as ear thermometers, one of which you can see being used in the image there. To date, this has totaled over 220,000 treatments, equipping health facilities across all 5 Intercare countries. Next slide, please. In October 2019, back in the days that we were allowed to leave our houses, I, along with a colleague, had the privilege of accompanying Diane and Werner to visit Intercare's programme in Malawi to see firsthand how the donations were being used. We were able to visit 6 supported health facilities that had received IHP medicines. That included 1 district hospital, St Joseph's, and 5 rural health centres. And one thing that really struck me during the visits was just how isolated and under-resourced some of these facilities are. Many of them depend on a single person to make clinical decisions for everyone that comes to the facility, which places a huge responsibility on their shoulders. And they have very limited access to wider support, perhaps receiving a support visit from a hospital-based doctor once every few months. Next slide, please. All of the facilities that we visited were facing significant challenges in terms of shortages of even basic medicines, which has a big impact on the ability to provide effective care for patients. Of course, this first and foremost affects the patient themselves, who without treatment suffers unnecessarily. And in some cases, they might have had a health condition that was relatively simple at the beginning, but it ends up developing into something more complex or serious because it went untreated. But it also affects the healthcare provider. Many of those that we met on our visit spoke about their experiences and the frustration involved of only being able to diagnose, but not to treat a patient right in front of you because of something as simple as a lack of medicine. And lastly, it affects that relationship of trust between a patient and the clinician, especially in cases, excuse me, where someone has travelled a long way to reach the facility and ends up leaving without treatment. They may or may not come back the next time that they need care. So it was really clear how much of a difference the donations through Intercare were making, particularly for those who can't afford to purchase those items from private pharmacies. In many of the facilities that we visited, we found that IHP medicines donated through Intercare were the only donated product on the shelves, meaning that they really were providing a lifeline to the most vulnerable members of the served communities. Next slide, please. For IHP, the visit was really valuable. It was very encouraging to see how much great work was taking place, to see how those medicines are really making a difference to both the patients receiving treatment and the healthcare providers who are trying to provide the best quality care possible under what are often very challenging circumstances. In addition, the content that we gathered from that trip, the contextual information, the stories, the photos, etc., all of that helps us tell the stories of Intercare's programmes, which helps us to report back to the companies that donated the product and also to encourage them to donate more in the future. It's also helped us build a much stronger understanding of the programme in Malawi and the medical needs. And as IHP, we're really committed to see how we can continue to build on that and do more to support the work. We're really proud of our partnership with Intercare and are looking forward to see it grow and develop further in the future. And on the last slides, I've left my contact details. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Louise. Put my video on. Thank you, Louise. And like you, we are immensely grateful for the partnership with International Health Partners, and we really do value your support. And without the likes of support from people like yourselves, it really helps us to enable to continue the good work we all do in Africa and globally. Thank you, Louise. Okay, so moving back, before we move on to the next speaker, I'd just like to mention that back to the formal business, there were actually 3 proxy votes which have been missed in the counting. So for the purpose of the minutes, Anita, please, would you add in 3 proxy votes that we had in 100% for every single resolution in advance of the meeting? Thank you. Now, sadly, our next speaker, Francis Vuma, can't be with us today, as we heard only yesterday that his wife and son, aged 8, have tested positive for COVID-19. His son has also sadly been diagnosed with malaria, and I know he wouldn't mind me sharing this information, but we do all send our best wishes to him and his family for a speedy recovery. Naturally, Francis is caring for them in isolation, but luckily, I did some pre-recorded footage last week with Francis where I did a question and answer session, and I would like to share this with you. To give you some background, Francis is the hospital administrator for St. Peter's Mission Hospital, which is of Anglican denomination. And the hospital supports around 15,000 people based on an island on the middle of Lake Malawi. This is 70 kilometres by boat to Nkata Bay and 120 kilometres to the nearest town. This gives you an idea of how isolated they are, which is also why it's devastating news that there's COVID on the island. The hospital has 26 staff who have to deal with any type of medical need. And as an island, they are reliant on very sporadic boat service. So getting supplies to them can be somewhat challenging. I'm now going to play a video that I pre-recorded with Francis. Please bear with me while I just load it. And we pick up with Francis discussing the challenges that are currently faced by the hospital. That's incredibly challenging for the patient, and I imagine for you getting supplies to the hospital as well would be very difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult because, as I said, it's on water. For example, if this reliable ship is not sailing, then you have to opt for these open boats that are traveling between the mainland and Likoma. Okay. There are 2 things that may happen. It's either we end up losing not only the patients, but all the supplies. We've had incidences where people have lost their goods on water, where the boats are drowning. Unfortunately, we've not had any fatality or dying, but we've had cases where people have lost millions and millions of goods just thrown on the water to avoid drowning. But for us as a hospital, as I already said, these boats do not have a concrete schedule to say they leave on such a day. So the challenge is that you buy medicines on the 10th or on the 1st of the month. There are no boats in. You get those medicines maybe on the 20th because there's no transport to get these things to Likoma. That's the challenge.
So potentially you could have 3 weeks with no supplies to be able to treat your patients.
very likely. Oftentimes we go like that, at times up to a month. We are stuck, we go with nothing. Even if when the boats are sailing at times, because we get medicines at times from government. So at times, because of the management systems, the processing takes longer. And again, not only that, at times the medicines are out of stock of central medical stores. So it can prolong. That can prolong, because if they tell you we don't have medicines, then there's nothing you can do. As I already said, we are a CHAM facility that is offering free services. We don't receive any user fees. So we are grateful for some partners who come in to be able to help us. Otherwise, we are a forgotten people in Likoma, and we are very grateful that we have people coming in to support us.
So the donations that Intercare makes do have a real difference to your work.
Very much. For example, just last month, we got supplies from Intercare. We have a couple of medicines that were not available, like Hexaclovir, we didn't have diclofenac, we didn't have piriton, we didn't have salbutamol, we didn't have albendazole, quinine tablets, propranolol for BP patients, calamine lotion, chlorhexidine syrup, as an antibiotic for children. We're completely zero, we're grounded. Zero completely. When these things came, even when I was telling the pharmacists, we've got some supplies that they've come in, by just looking at the item list, you actually see him saying a great relief. I think now we are indeed a hospital because we can save patients. So it came in. I can say most of the time these drugs have come in where we are most hit, where we don't know how to save patients, where we are sending out patients back because there are no meds. But luckily enough for Intercare, making a great impact, medicines coming in where we are down completely. We don't know what to do, and if this shipment comes in, then it saves people. Up to now, the medicines are saving people because we have not had any initial shipment again from government. Possibly we'll get this in February. So at least the medicines that came in, they've been able to push us. We know they cannot surpass 2-3 months, but they've made a great impact to save people of not only Malawian people, as I already said. We've got those coming from Mozambique, we've got those coming from Tanzania to come and access medical services at Likoma. So it's a huge, very huge impact here, and we are very grateful and we pray for the continued partnership and those again who help you.
Yeah. I can't imagine how incredibly challenging it is. I actually think that for me personally, to be part of Intercare, to be able to help you is hugely rewarding. And I know our supporters listening to you talking today will be very delighted to hear that actually we do make a difference. And at the moment, you probably heard about the challenges in the UK with COVID-19. Can you tell me a little bit about if you've been affected on Likoma Island from COVID-19?
Yes, indeed we have not been spared. Just last year on Likoma, we recorded 4 cases of COVID-19. On the 4 cases, one was a healthcare nurse, a nurse midwife technician who got affected. 3 other patients the other one was a husband who actually imported the virus from the mainland to the wife who was already hypertensive and wasted. Unfortunately, she got the COVID-19 virus. She didn't survive. She passed on. We had again another patient, a well-known patient who was with multiple complications, who had gone to Zuzu to seek medical services. When they were there, actually, the parents and the guardians, seeing that she wasn't improving, they decided to take her to a prayer house. It didn't improve. They decided to come back home to Likoma, and she ended up being at St. Peter's Hospital because she was a patient already. We are the ones who referred her to the mainland. She came affected with COVID-19. Unfortunately, she passed on. In the interim, our nurse again imported the COVID-19 from Zuzu she came with the symptoms, but she didn't say. But fortunately, she was diagnosed much earlier. So out of the 4 patients, with 2 surviving, we represent 50% of that. Currently now, this second wave of COVID. Hospital, we've got so many challenges because we don't have an isolation center. Even the 2 that I mentioned that they passed on in the hospital, what we did was to improvise a side ward where we kept them in isolation because we would not send them back to their respective homes without a recovery. This is the challenge we have now.
Thank you to Patrick. Sorry, I do apologise. Thank you to Francis. As you will see from the video, it was actually just a practice run for today's session. And little did I know then that the 4 cases he was talking about on Likoma Island would turn out to now this week include obviously his wife and son. So again, our best wishes and prayers for a speedy recovery to Francis and his family. So moving on, we have the live broadcast from Sierra Leone with Dr. Patrick Turay. Dr. Patrick, are you there? There we go. Now we have, can you show me video? Yes. Hello, welcome, greetings. What's the weather like in Sierra Leone at the moment?
It's warm and sunny.
Oh, we have flooding today.
Hello.
Without further ado,
Right.
I welcome you. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the hospital that you founded? Over to you, Patrick.
Yes, good morning. My name is Patrick. I am the medical director of the Holy Spirit Catholic Hospital in Makeni, Sierra Leone. This is a 100-bed hospital that provides services to a catchment population of over 200,000. I first came into contact with Intercare about 4 years ago through a UK-based charity known as Makeni Trust Fund, which provides humanitarian services to our community. Intercare over the years has been a very helpful and reliable partner in providing much needed medical supplies to our community. Consignments of medical drugs are normally air freighted to Sierra Leone for use in our hospitals and clinics. These drugs normally consist of antibiotics, anti-diabetics, antihypertensives, and other life-saving drugs that are normally not found within our system. In 2018, a 20-foot container of medical supplies and consumables was shipped from Intercare in UK to Sierra Leone. This was a success story. The container distributed to clinics and hospitals that are being supported by Intercare in Sierra Leone. One of the challenges faced in Sierra Leone is unavailability of certain life-saving drugs, and in most cases, substandard and fake drugs. Through Intercare, we have been guaranteed of a continuous supply of high quality, certified and approved drugs that can be very useful to our community. During one of my visits to Intercare headquarters in Leicester, that was in 2008, the Holy Spirit Hospital was donated with a patient monitor. If I can just take you around to just have a glimpse of one of the monitors that was donated by Intercare that is in use in our facility. Okay. So this monitor was donated by Intercare. Okay. In conclusion, I wish to extend our sincere gratitude and thanks to Intercare and its partners who have been supportive in providing much needed medical supply to our community. We continue to pray and hope that the COVID pandemic will soon come to an end and life will get back to normalcy for everybody. I thank you all.
I thank you too, Patrick. It's great to hear, and I know that the people joining us today will really appreciate seeing you live in your own consulting room and the actual visual of where you treat patients and after surgery, and the importance of what we send in donations. So it's not just medicines, it's also the healthcare goods we send. Thank you, Patrick. I understand you might have to leave us now. We really do appreciate your joining us today and giving up your time, and we wish you well, and I understand you now have to go and treat a patient. So thank you on our behalf from everyone at Intercare, and good luck in your work. And the good news is we're actually sending a container next week, but I'll tell the people more about that. Okay, thank you, Patrick. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
So I hope that you've enjoyed our virtual AGM and found out more about the work through Intercare, through the assistance of our speakers, Louise and Francis and Patrick. You have heard Alan and Phil give a summary of the year that we are reporting on. And one of the key achievements that I am proud of during the year, which we've not mentioned yet, is the donation of vital personal protective equipment. The UK government banned the export of PPE, and local facilities were in desperate need as supplies were not getting through. For the first time in Intercare's history, this one-off project supported health facilities in the UK. We reopened our doors during the first lockdown, and we took all of the PPE off our shelves and delivered these supplies across Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire to 10 doctors' surgeries, 20 care homes and Loros, the local hospice for adult care. It has been an unprecedented year with the coronavirus impacting globally and making challenges for many charities nationwide. And for Intercare, it has particularly affected us in the area of logistics and volunteer resource. All things considered, as you will have heard from Phil's presentation, we do start our new financial year on a really strong footing, which is due to the dedication of our supporters and team of volunteers and staff who have enabled this. Already, in the first 4 months of this financial year, we have been able to send supplies with a 54% value of what we sent in the whole of the previous year. We are determined this year to increase our output to make up for the lower numbers last year. These supplies that we have sent so far have been purchased through an NGO we work with, known as Action Medior. We have been able to support 19 health units in Malawi, where Action Medior has a warehouse, and no exportation has taken place from the UK. Only yesterday, I've also been able to send an order for 5 more health units in Malawi. And we've also dispatched medicines from our warehouse, which have been donated by Morningside Pharmaceuticals and International Health Partners, which have gone to 3 partner hospitals in Sierra Leone, of which Holy Spirit was one of them. This was a challenge because there's a huge reduction in air freight capacity, but I'm pleased to say that 100% of the donation has got through. Our 3rd container that we have built in the warehouse is ready and waiting to go to port as soon as a 20-foot container becomes available. Only this morning we have had news that we aim to dispatch next Thursday, the 28th of January, but we understand there is a global shortage. The container is currently valued at 150,000 and is destined for 5 hospitals in Sierra Leone. And it consists of 100% of donated healthcare goods. During February, we plan to support 36 health units in Tanzania with more purchasing of medicines in country. Whilst there are many restrictions at the moment in the UK and we have a lack of volunteer workforce. We cannot predict the road ahead. However, I firmly believe that although in nearly 47 years of operation, Intercare has never experienced anything like the current situation. The support we are given by all of those involved with Intercare will enable us to continue to support the health units we are partnered with in Africa to save lives and alleviate suffering through the provision of surplus medical resources. I am now formally going to close the AGM, and a short message will follow from our patron, Bishop Patrick Makeni. But before I play the video, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of the speakers who have taken part in today's event, and they have given up much of their valuable time to be with us. I also would like to thank the attendees for supporting us year in, year out with your donations, whether it's time, money or products. On behalf of all the trustees and staff of Intercare, I thank you for joining us today at this virtual event and wish you all a safe and healthy 2021. I shall now play the final message from the Bishop. Just please bear with me.
Good morning, everyone. I do apologize that I'm unable to be with you for this Zoom AGM, but I know, as always, it will have been a positive one. I very much welcome the opportunity to wish you all a very happy and healthy new year, and to express once again my appreciation for the amazing work of Diane, the staff, the trustees, and all of you volunteers. I say this because this past year has been so difficult in so many different ways. And yet, reading the report for this AGM, you all seem to have paved a creative way through the challenges posed by the coronavirus pandemic. It's a tribute to your collective dedication, creativity, and flexibility that the report reads so positively. What a great decision when banned from exporting PPE supplies to donate them to local medical settings across Leicestershire and Nottingham. They will, I know, have been gratefully received. The line in the report which I felt best summed up the true spirit of Intercare reads like this. Whilst coronavirus doesn't care who it affects, Intercare hasn't stopped caring. Thank you for all you have continued to do in spite of the restrictions posed by the pandemic. May the Lord continue to bless each of you and to make the work of Intercare ever more fruitful throughout this new year. May God bless you and keep you well, because as you know well, your work is so vital to so many of the poorest peoples of our world.